All right, we are here with Aaron. Thank you very much, Aaron, for joining us. It has been a while. We have had a talk, I think a year ago or something. So thank you for taking the time, coming back on and answering some community questions, some questions that I had. And I hope it's going to be a really, really nice talk. How are you doing, man?
Well, yeah, thank you for having me. I hope that I can give you some insights with my questions. I'll certainly do my best.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So most of these questions come somewhat from the community. I've restructured them, rewritten them a little bit, but I hope I reflect the essence of what everybody was trying to ask. But if I didn't, yeah, cut me some slack there.
No worries. You know me, my answers tend to sort of branch off in all sorts of different areas. So yeah, just hit me and I'll do my best to try and stay on track.
All right, let's do it. So one of the first questions, which I thought was super interesting, and it's about your journey with Illuvium and everything. So looking back the last 4 or 5 years, is there something that you would maybe advise your past self, the past Aaron, what you could have done better or what you should have done and stuff like this?
There is a lot that I would tell my past self. I think once you get to my age, there's probably 5 or 10 times across your life that you've sort of had that thought of what would I tell my past self that would make things a lot smoother and easier. I think the important thing to remember though is that we never do get that opportunity. So whatever mistakes that we make in the past, the real key is that going forward, you just have to use that learning and try to get onto the right path from then on. But if I had to say one thing, it would probably be to pick and choose the things that I'm principled on a little bit more carefully. I can be a very stubborn person and I can get stuck into certain ways of thinking, and then people can try to knock me out of that, and in some of those cases it's absolutely what is required, and in other cases I feel like I should stay firm and stick to my principles. And I would definitely say that in the last 4 or 5 years that there's been plenty of times where I've stuck to my principles when I shouldn't have. And then there's other times where I've sort of maybe not given in, but I've accepted that other people have a different opinion on things and just run with that. And in those cases, probably the best that we could have done was to switch them a little bit, right? Be a little bit more principled on the other things. But at the time, it's very hard to know which of those things are the right things to be principled on and which are not. You can't be stubborn over everything and you can't be a pushover on everything. So you got to choose. And I think in the end, there's quite a few things that I would flip around, but that's really the way that, life works, and you can't go back. All you can do is at that moment say, did I think that this was the right idea at the time? And all throughout this project, that's the way that I've taken it, is we've taken leaps, we've done crazy things, we've been bold at times, and we've always been of the opinion that if it's not the right thing, if we've made the wrong choices, then once we learn that they're the wrong choices, just go fix them, right? Just keep working. We're very, I guess you would say that the people on our team are quite stubborn about being successful. We don't like the idea that people don't like some of the things that we've done. We don't even like the idea that people aren't madly in love with some of the things that we've done, but that's just the facts of the matter. So all you can do is just fix it going forward, and I hope that that's what we can do.
Yeah, I appreciate that honesty. And like you said, we cannot go back. And I think every decision, even if it's sometimes in hindsight the wrong decision, it just shapes our future still. And we wouldn't be here if even some of these mistakes we could redo and something else could go wrong. Like, it's better to not overanalyze it and just go forward. And then, like you said, we can always fix it afterwards, and being that humble and accepting that maybe you have had the wrong decisions in the past, but you can still fix them and try the best to moving forward. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes it's one of those things where it's not that any, two different ways of thinking about something are the wrong decision. Sometimes it's that you try to form a compromise, and going down one path or going down the other path would have both been great. And then going down the compromise path, that's the one that can sometimes be the one that really gets you unstuck, right? Because you end up trying to be too many different things for too many different people. We obviously have a community that's very passionate and that we try to do the best that we can for. And so there's sometimes that the community will put forward something that, I try my best to, please them in those ways. And maybe I should be a little bit more firm. And then there's other times where you say, no, this is definitely wrong. You shouldn't listen to them. And then it turns out in hindsight, the community was right. It's happened with us on the team together. My two brothers and I, we are all very similar when it comes to those things, that we have big ideas and that we're quite passionate about them. And sometimes they've been right, sometimes I've been right, and occasionally the compromise is the one that maybe the least good option, but you get clarity from that. I do think that it's a good idea to analyze it to an extent. I just don't think it's a very helpful activity to really ruminate on it and sit there and get upset about it and worry. For me, that's definitely something that I've struggled with all my life, is to try and do the best that I can. I really don't like the idea of making mistakes. It's something that impacts me quite negatively. But I think as I've gotten older, I've learned a little bit more about accepting that those mistakes are going to happen. I've made enough of them over the course of the 42 years that I've been on this planet that I'm starting to realize, you know what, you can only do what you can do. And as long as you're putting in your best effort, then, it's really about that next step.
Yeah. And some say, or many say, like one of the biggest things how to learn is to make mistakes, right? It's part of evolving, I think. And what you mentioned there, that there is like a lot of different perspectives. We have that a lot in Illuvium, right? With so many different game modes. We have mobile audience. We have the sweats, the PvPers. We have the casual players, the investors. There's so many different sides, and you cannot make it perfect for all of them. I appreciate that many times there has been found a really good compromise, but sometimes it feels like you have to pick a path, and it cannot be perfect for everyone, especially with so many audiences thrown in together. And talking about the launch, is there maybe something something that stands out from the launch, that like memorable lessons and what you could have done different there, or what you did
the
good?
Launch was probably it's probably one of those things where the lesson learned about the launch was about decisions made 1 and 2 years earlier. That's probably the most important thing. So the second last dev blog, there's another one that hasn't gone out, but it's been written, sort of went into a lot of those mistakes, maybe not as detailed as what people would like, but it really came down to a lose-lose situation from the perspective of doing it perfect, where the community really wanted us to get out there and have stuff be real and start paying for the stuff that they're going to have in the game, collecting the alluvials, collecting suits and weapons and all of that sort of stuff. And they didn't want to see any more delays, but at the same time, they wanted for it to be as perfect as it could possibly be, right? Which is perfectly understandable, and it's exactly what the community should expect. But we had gotten ourselves to the point where, because it was such a sprawling ecosystem with, I've said many times, we actually have 19 separate projects that are all going on at the same time, whether they be web projects or things for content creators, the games themselves, the infrastructure. There's a lot of different things that we do, and a lot of gaming studios don't have to do that, or their parent studio takes care of a lot of that stuff. So when they talk about having 20 people or 40 people or 100 people, they're really talking about having 20, 40 or 100 developers or artists that are actually working directly on there. We had to build a lot of that infrastructure. And some of it was our own mistake. We probably went a little bit too broad. Early on, I really wanted us to narrow down and pick one thing and try to do it well. Yeah, we went down a path that I would say was quite a bit wider than it was deep. So instead of like really, really going in on one particular game, we tried to make 3 games as good as they could possibly be. And with that, there's some necessary compromises that you need to make. But probably the biggest learning is that when you do that, you end up having a large amount of people on the team that have to context switch all of the time. I can really only speak for myself, but I know how tough it has been for me, context switching, that I can't even imagine what it's like for some of the other people on the team. There's a few people out there that are really good examples of this. Jeremy, who came from the community, who is one of the best people that we have working in the business. I always find that the work that he's doing is just amazing, that he can keep all these things in his head. But I think that in the long run, even he would be better picking one thing and getting it done, and then being able to dust your hands of it and say it's done. And one of the things going forward that we're planning on doing is starting to go a little bit more down that narrowing path. There's obviously going to be some people, as you said, there's like 15,000 different types of people that are interested in Illuvium. Not every single one of them is going to be super keen on that, but I think that the hardcore people, the investors, the people that really are looking for us to do well long term, are going to like the decisions that we make going into the future, because it's going to be about really picking particular things, getting it up to a very good standard, and then moving the team over to something else and doing that excellent, because I know we can do it. It's just that you end up going so broad that you're not able to be at the best of whatever your ability is. And that's really part of what we're doing in our push into Christmas.
Yeah. And I think that the worst of this is behind us, where it was very like spread around a lot of projects, but these projects are still the same. And now I think you're really trying to polish and perfectionize one after the other, or at the same time still, which I would assume is really hard, like you said, to be involved in so many different games at the same time from a developer side or whatever it is. And many times I'm like arguing with or discussing stuff with the community about some features, and I see all the different points from them, and I wouldn't want to be in your shoes many times where I have to decide, hey, am I trying to make like a better game right now, which is obviously in my mind the best decision always, or am I trying to please more the investors, and how do I make the game better without alienating investors too much? Like maybe they have to take a hit, but the game gets better, so in the long run it's going to be better for them as well. And yeah, there comes so much into this.
Yeah, I think that for us, it's definitely gotten better, right? Like we've always, I mean, my push has always been narrow as much as possible, right? Get things down to what really matters. The one good thing, in my opinion, is that even though there's a lot of different types of people out there that might have different ideas about the project, at the end of the day, the main thing that will drive everything forward is success, right? Success comes from having a good game that people like, that people are interested in playing, that want to buy either the alluvials or the different items, or they want to buy cosmetics for it. I think that's a fairly simple equation. It has been tough for a lot of crypto games because there's a lot of other ways to get some type of a pseudo success that never really lasts. Yeah. But we've never been about that, right? We've never been about that. And so we really have a very simple decision to make, which is make sure that we can get the project as good as it can be. Because if we can do that, I think that for the most part, we will make the largest number of people happy. Maybe there's some people out there that are like, I wanted you to build a dating simulator, and putting that on hold to 2030 or something like that. In those cases, oh yeah, there's definitely going to be some people that are disappointed with some of the choices that we make. But if people trust us to make the right choice about, particular games that we want to focus on and stuff like that, then I think at the end of the day, you'll see a steady uptick that hopefully will start to build more and more momentum. And there's right now, in my opinion, a lot of people sleeping on what it is that we're capable of doing. And I get it. I totally understand why people would be skeptical. All I would say to those people is don't bet against us. We are going to do it.
Yeah. And I have a really comfortable position most of the time because I am in my heart a gamer, and by now I really enjoy just playing the game. Like Gauntlet gives me that feeling what TFT always gave me. So I can just sit back and I don't need to worry too much. Oh, what's the next thing when it's this coming? I'm just playing the game. And I also can sit back because over the years, like I've been here for 3 years, and I've seen the team constantly deliver the utmost best product they can deliver. Like everything that has been coming out, sometimes maybe even too perfect, has been really good. And the team has built a lot of trust, and I can just, sometimes I'm like, is this better? Is this better? Well, there's professionals behind the scene who are paid to exactly make those decisions. And sometimes I can like lean back and trust the process and trust the team because they definitely deserve the trust that I have in them. And they build over the years.
I definitely appreciate that, but I think the strong feeling inside of the team is that it's taken us this 4-year period to get a really, really good understanding of what we think a crypto studio can do, what types of games they can deliver, the types of polish that are capable of being delivered. And I would say up until this point, because of some of the reasons that I've gone into previously, and maybe some things that I either can't get into or we don't have time to get into, we have been hamstrung in what we can do. Right now, this comes from us. I'm not blaming anyone outside of myself for these things, but if you're happy with the way that Gauntlet is going now, then come say January, you're going to be ecstatic with Gauntlet because it is nowhere near what we want it to be and what we know that it can be. And then there's parts of Overworld that we are maybe not overhauling, but maybe we can get into it a bit later. But there's elements in there that allow us to build games that are just purely fun, right? Yeah. One of the things that I was maybe a little bit too, I guess, firm on, stubborn, whatever you want to call it, early on was I really didn't want us to have that Ponzi scheme feel where the assets aren't developed in a way that sort of makes any sort of sense. We didn't want to have that crazy inflation. We wanted to treat our community with the utmost respect. So we wanted to have a solid system. But part of having that solid system meant picking a model that would work for the way that we saw the crypto space evolving. And that meant, you know, there's been a few people that are not particularly happy that every time you go into the overworld, you got to pay some fuel to go out there and do it. And I get that. It's, you know, we've always treated it like a really fun way of opening a pack of cards, but maybe that just doesn't work, right? Maybe in the gamer space, people just don't like that idea, even though you get people buying Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering cards and all of these types of cards, and they're fine with it. And then they go and take those cards and go play games with them or collect them or whatever they want to do. Yeah. Maybe that works. For us, maybe the fact that we put a whole game around it made it less fun than if we just sold packs of cards, right? And that was on me. I didn't want us to have one of those like house of cards ecosystems where everything comes crumbling down if, you know, you just let it run. So we tried to be really strict with that so that people couldn't steal things, so that people couldn't, you know, exploit things, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But maybe there was a better way of doing it that if I hadn't been so stubborn early on, we could have found a different way to do it that would have also been really robust. And we're looking into other ways that we can improve the ecosystem and get it better. But the most important thing right now for us is ensuring that new people that come into the game have a really good time, right? I would say right now that the average experience for people that don't have a lot of sort of skin in the game of our ecosystem is not as good as it could be. And that's what we're focused on. I want someone who's never heard of us to go play Gauntlet and have the time of their life. I want them to go into Overworld and go, wow, this is something different. This is enjoyable. I love it. And ironically, some of the ways that we can make it a bit more different is to, learn from what other people have done in the past and just put our own spin on it and not try to be so crazy different to everybody else. I think that there's something there that we can do. The team is pretty confident on it. We've got a lot of stuff happening internally that will need to go through like huge IIPs that the community will have to vote on. We need to make sure that everybody is ready for them. I can't discuss them right now, but be prepared in the next probably 2 weeks that there will be some very large scale IIPs that come out that change some pretty decent systems. Some of it is fairly obvious things that I was just wrong about and that we need to fix. And I think most people will get on board with. Some people will probably, the purists like me probably will feel a little bit saddened by it, but I think that they'll understand the things that we're trying to do. And then there's other things that are much more gameplay related that will be very, very exciting.
That is exciting. Bring it. I can't wait. 2 weeks. That sounds great. Yeah, I think there will always be some naysayers, but I think there has been, like, I'm really, really happy to be in this community also because there is a lot of like older people, right? Usually in gaming, I'm used to having to play against teenage boys. That's why I kind of stopped playing like shooters and stuff because my reactions cannot keep up with it anymore. But now we have like people that created businesses, that have families, and we have so much life experience. And I've learned a lot personally from that. And I think we have really smart people in the community. And oftentimes, maybe all this community close work was a little bit maybe in the way of development, but definitely there's a lot of good things also coming from it. And yeah, if there is something good presented, the majority of the people can see that and can actually get behind it. And yeah, I'm really excited for that. Talking a little bit more about upcoming features, do you have something that you're working on right now, that you focus on right now, that gives you like a challenge and that you're really looking forward to, that you could talk about, or is it more behind doors till it comes?
No, there's two major things that are going on at the moment. I don't watch a lot of the AMAs. I'm sorry. I tend to focus much more internal parts of the team. So it could be that I'm leaking something, or it could be that you know all of the stuff that I'm about to say, but I'll just tell you what it is that I know. In the Overworld, we're looking at adding a game mode that will be purely about fun, will be purely about effectively being the Gauntlet equivalent for Overworld, where it's the use case for your assets, something that's infinitely replayable, that you can go in with friends. It's a multiplayer experience, and you get to do all of those sort of, grindy things and fun things and camaraderie things, right? Like it's a co-op experience that involves combat, and it brings into place a lot of the lore, right? The current game, you'll get a lot more of the lore as people, start to capture alluvials with the Xenoprints. You'll also get lore because there's a person who either is or was on the planet before you that is recording things that you guys have only seen, I think, 9 of those entries so far. I don't know how like hardcore you go down into the lore, but there's quite a few of those entries for the later regions. And they're recorded, they're ready to go, and they give you a lot more context. But because those things are much more context and background about the larger scale thing that's going on, we need to start to put in place some experiences that allow the community to experience it for themselves. The tricky part with that is, and I've said this for a while, is we're not particularly keen on putting out just a single standalone experience that people play that has chapters and stuff like that. It's not that we don't think that would be a fun game, and it's actually something that would be like very easy for us to do from a lore perspective, because we wrote most of that story as if it were a movie. Yeah. So a single player experience that goes chapter to chapter would be perfectly fine. But early on, we said, this is a community. We want to build out a world, and not everyone can be the hero. So later on, we'll definitely allow people to go and do that hero experience. So there will definitely be something, I don't know, it's probably 3-4 years away where you'll get to play as Len and go and do her parts. But you'll know a lot about what happened in her part through context of things that the community does otherwise, right? There's quite a big event planned for the switch over to set 2 Illuvials. That would be like part of the reason why we're building multiplayer, is because we don't want that to just be like a cutscene where you get to see, hey, what has she been doing while you've been on the planet and doing your thing? We want you to be able to be a part of that. So that's one of the reasons why we have multiplayer in there, so that everyone can do a multiplayer experience that involves mostly story, but you still get to be your ranger. Because that's one thing that we've definitely not sort of pushed hard enough, is that you are the ranger. That is your identity. The Illuvials are very cool. They're the things that you love to collect. They're the things that you want to give names and, form a bond with, but they're not you. Right? We might let you play as them later on, and that could definitely be very, very cool. But for now, we really want to build out that feeling that you are a person in a world dealing with a situation, and how are you going to deal with it. So on the Overworld side, that's a fairly reasonable look at what that is going to be. It'll sit completely standalone to the collection experience. Like I said, it'll be a bit more like Gauntlet in that owning Illuvials will be a vastly beneficial thing for you to do. Owning Illuvials that are very high level will be definitely beneficial. Owning Illuvials with very strong traits will be beneficial, but you don't need any of that if you don't want. You can go straight into the game. If you're into third-person sort of action-adventure style of games, then you could go directly into that without owning a single thing and start playing the experience just like you can for Gauntlet. And then after a while, you might sort of realize, hey, I could probably do better at this if I own some tier zeros. That doesn't cost me anything. I already know a lot of the mechanics of this game, so I'll go and do this other experience. I'll go and collect some, and then we hope that that will onboard people into the whole collection experience, where you can't stop with just a flish, right? You got to pick up a Doka, then you got to pick up all of the Dokas, and then you got to get Exalted, and all of a sudden you're 75 Illuvials in, and you're starting to level them up, and then it's like, hey, I might as well go in and get some of the, much more powerful Illuvials, because they're going to help you even more, right? Yeah. And leveling them up is going to help you more and more in that game as well. And the overall idea for it is to really allow people to get onboarded across 2 separate games. So that is a huge challenge for us in Overworld. I can't talk specifically about the dates, but there are certain things that are available internally that allow us to test. So we're not nowhere, and we're already, getting to the point where we're finding the fun in the game. This mode, it's codenamed Project Breach, and you can speculate on what you think that might mean as far as the lore of the game or what you're planning on doing in this game, but exactly when that will come out, I can't say at this point, because unlike with the previous games where we sort of felt like we got to pick a date and then just work towards it, we really want to make sure that we find the fun in this game, so that when it launches, everyone goes, holy crap, this is amazing. But that's only just a little part of the ecosystem. The other biggest challenge that I would say, and this is probably where I'm going to spend most of my time, is making sure that we have the best auto battler that is out there. Gauntlet is something that we want to use to introduce a lot of people to the game that maybe already play things like Underlords and TFT and other battlers. And we need to make it our own. At the moment, I would say that Gauntlet is very similar to Dota Underlords, but that's not the final form of it, not by any shot. We are nearly finished. Like I said, part of the thing for the lore for us is we really want you to feel like you are the ranger, right? That is who you are. And so the ranger is going to be on the battle board, right? Just like it is in Ascendant modes and just like it is in survival. So we feel that will be a really cool way to differentiate ourselves in the space. You'll have up to 9 alluvials that you can deploy. We're going to keep the cap probably at 10. That meaning you plus the ranger. But I don't know if you've got Americans will definitely know this, and maybe some Australians, but there's this thing called Build-A-Bear workshops where you go into a building and you say, I want a teddy bear and I want to give it this eyes and I want to give it this legs, and you effectively configure it together and then it's yours, right? Yeah. I would say it's like, letting people cook with a bear, right? And we want to let people cook with the ranger, right? Part of the whole process is making the game feel like our own. For us, putting the ranger in there will allow you to configure the suit that you wear. The suit that you wear effectively acts as, I guess you would call it, the passive and some of the stats. And then the weapon is going to give you your class, your affinity, your omega. So you'll have all of these other alluvials, and then you'll have this separate alluvial, not actually an alluvial, but you get my point, right? Yeah. It's like an extra combat unit that will be able to be configurable and allow you to do a lot of cool switching throughout the game. And the point for us is we're just going to allow it to happen through the normal shop, which means no new onboarding to do. You buy weapons, you buy suits exactly the same as you're currently buying them now. Everyone will be able to understand that, but it'll allow people who are maybe of a slightly lower skill level to be able to look into really switching up their board, because we have a lot of ways that you can impact your opponent in our game that other games don't, right? Our game is definitely not one of those, this is the best board and you just got to try and go and get it. Maybe our balance is off enough that, we're not quite there yet, but once we get that locked in place, we feel like we'll have something that is just as easy as anything else to onboard people into. Really fun, vibrant characters that look amazing, and it will allow that skill level to show at the top level. So we're hoping to entice those top level players such as yourself and other guys from other communities to say, hey, there are some cool things for you in there. There's definitely that strategic depth. You're going to love playing tournaments. There's going to be, some killer prizes and stuff like that you don't see in other games. And then there'll also be that ability for the average person to go in there and just play and have fun and on board. But it's not there yet. And that's the push towards Christmas and probably into January for us. You'll get some features released pre-Christmas for sure, but there's probably 6 other things that I haven't mentioned that will make it our game, and, awesome. And they'll come thick and fast.
Yeah, I love the immersion already, and like, what do you say with the Gauntlet? That really sets us apart without being like changing the whole thing too much, but really making this unique selling proposition work. And with the immersion, like what you said, you are a ranger, you're not the hero to start off with. I've seen that a lot, or even with the small things that we have already, I've seen it. Like when you talk to other rangers in the Sanctum Mesa, they tell you like, what are you doing? Get back to work. I'm like, all right, sorry. And it really feels like, it reminds me of World of Warcraft, where in the beginning you talk to someone and they're like, oh, you're a grunt or you are just a little soldier, right? You have to work your way up there and actually do something to become that hero. You don't start off with it. And I really like that. Quickly talking about the game mode you talked about in the beginning. So basically saying, very granular, it's a free-to-play multiplayer experience for the overworld. Kind of arcade feeling. You jump in, you play, you have fun, you get something from the lore. Kind of this direction, right?
So the lore will come from the fact of like, what the hell are you doing, right? There's a very specific thing that we're asking you to go do, right? Yeah. And we've touched on it previously, but because the launch,
like a little bit like a raid, you go somewhere in and you have like this end boss or this end goal you have to achieve together.
You'll see. Well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but you're definitely on the right track. But the point is that the other things that we're working on, such as the questing system that we're building out, where at the moment there's missions, but there's not really any besides the first experience that you go in and becoming a ranger. That's the only real sort of quest that we really have. And I think we did a decent job there, but we're building that out for all sorts of other quests that will give you a story to go into. Yeah. The prioritization means that we will probably have to focus heavily on one area. So you're probably not going to see like all of these things just pop at once. You'll see an improvement here, an improvement there, and the point is you'll see more improvements than what we previously did. You just might not see them so parallel, but outside of those questing experiences where you'll get a lot of very detailed information about what's going on, right? Because again, you're both a lowly grunt and someone incredibly important, right? That's sort of the vibe that we have with Illuvium is, and maybe some people don't go into the lore a lot, or we've not done a good enough job of showing them those things. But the fact is that the ranger sits in this weird space, and the other rangers that are there with you are also in a bit of a weird space of how do I talk to this person, because there's not a clear-cut idea of how they should, right? Are they the lowly grunt, or are they very important? And that we think that we can play on that and have some very, very cool interactions with the questing system. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're a really, really important person or a lowly grunt. There are some things that you need to do here in order to solve the problems, and you need to go get doing them, right? So that means that everybody in that sense is going to be a lowly grunt, and you got to go and help us in this particular situation that we're putting in front of you. And if you help, you'll get rewarded, but you don't have to pay to do this interaction. You can go out there and just grind it. I mean, don't grind it 24 hours a day, but you can go out there, and we expect that some people will get quite addicted to it, because it's meant to be one of those things that every time you go in, you're going to get a slightly different experience. You're going to improve yourself both outside with permanent boosts, plus improve yourself inside with temporary boosts. And because every time you play this game, it's going to be just that little bit different, you're going to really find it a replayable experience. Not that this is like some crazy new genre that we've invented. It's absolutely not. You get this all the time. There's plenty of games that do it. We're just learning from the best and putting our own spin on it.
Yeah, that's how it usually works in game development, right? Most of the games that come out are a spin of something that has worked in the past. Also, you have created something completely new, I think, with Ascendant, where you combine Auto Battler with TCG. So I'm really stoked to see how that goes. Really quickly, before we go into the other game modes, Overworld, how do you see it like in a year from now? Is there going to be maybe industrial buildings, because all the ranges they have, like now there is some, you see what they have done over the years, or are we going to get a new region and stuff like this?
I mean, we're very close to getting another region out, plus there's a bunch of other regions that are very close, right? Like they're getting to the point where we're at a pretty happy state with them. So yeah, there'll definitely be regions that will come out. There will definitely be additions to Sancta Mesa specifically, because that is the hub. You can see that that's in the process of being built out now. As we build out more things, you'll start to see more experiences pop up. One of the things that I can definitely tell you that we're not doing with, any new game mode or brand new game is we're not building an MMO, right? It's too costly, too big. But I've always been a fan of Moneyball. I would like us to build an MMO in the aggregate, right? Yeah. I would love for us to be able to have enough experiences through Sancta Mesa where you're either playing this new game mode in Overworld while your lobby is, looking to pop, while you're playing in arena mode, or you're playing, you're going out and capturing more creatures, or whatever it happens to be that you're doing. We would like it to feel MMO-esque. Mm-hmm. So part of the multiplayer that we're doing is building out multiplayer so that Sancta Mesa is a persistent region. You'll be able to see other rangers running around in there, talk to them, emotes and stuff like that. That's well underway at this stage.
Probably layered on like realms or servers. You cannot have like everybody in one, right?
We might not be able to fit every single person on there. There may have to be, some sort of realms to it. Sancta Mesa is one of those areas where that makes me feel a little bit sad, because there's no lore way that I could just, sort of explain away why you're in Sancta Mesa, someone else is in Sancta Mesa, but you're not in the same Sancta Mesa. Yeah. But hey, that's life. Yeah. When it comes to the other regions, it is absolutely from the very beginning been part of the lore and the mechanics that if you're in Brightland Steppes and I'm in Brightland Steppes, we absolutely are almost guaranteed to not be in the same Brightland Steppes, right? Hopefully people have started to realize that as they've done it, that the reason why you can't see anyone else there is because they're not there. They're not where you are, right? Oh, wow. They may be close.
I didn't pick up on that.
They may be close, and that gives us some really cool things to do with instancing the other regions, because we would still like there to be a single experience where you're collecting the creatures. I don't know if that's something that we would keep long term, if we can find better, more fun ways to do it. We are definitely looking at ways that we can always improve the ecosystem, the economy, and all that sort of stuff. But as long as we keep the collection in the overworld, there'll be this plan to have it be that you could almost have sort of like a co-op run with someone else. And I think that would be really cool, because you've got yourself battling, Ramfire, and your mate is looking at you and they're seeing you slash around, with your sword or your bow or whatever. And they're like, I don't see what the hell you're fighting. But you're like, no, this is like the best Ramfire I've ever seen. And they get to sort of experience your fight and have a bit of fun. Just have a little bit of a chill out session with you. Yeah. You don't share the loot. So that means that it's a little bit, easier for us to handle conflict resolution. Yeah. But you do get to help each other out, and you can say, hey, come up to this region, there's some cool things over here, or this is sort of how you do that. And you could sort of explain how to do, particular jumps and mechanics and stuff. And we think that that'll make the world feel a lot more fleshed out.
Yeah. Thank you for not sharing the loop, because I remember back in the days, like we had to have a loot council in raids and points and everything. And now, the modern MMO just gives everybody their part. There is no fighting about that.
I'm one of the original Ultima Online, EverQuest sort of players. Yeah, I played Rogue, right? So I go right back to the original loot sort of games. And I never liked the experience of having to share things or that random things drop. I'd much prefer to be in the same place as someone else, and they do their thing, I do mine, almost like two co-workers working next to each other. They don't always talk to each other, but they're there in case something crazy happens so that they can share it.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about, you hinted at the combat in the overworld and also between players. Is there something you can tell us how it will look? Is there going to be is it like live action combat where you are parrying and dodging? Are you controlling your Illuvial, what it does? Is it doing its own thing? You just say attack this and then it just does what it wants to do?
So the current state of the combat system, I can tell you about that, and it feels quite fun. Before we release it, we definitely want to make sure that it's as fun as possible. So at the end of the day, some of these things may change, but you can definitely dodge. You can definitely sort of hop out of the way. You attack in an active way, but this is not Dark Souls. We're not trying to make it be the hardest thing imaginable. Yeah. we're trying to make it be maybe a little bit arcadey, a little bit fun, really over the top and cool, but still providing that Illuvium sci fantasy sort of a feel where you've got weapons that are kind of fantasy sort of weapons, but they've definitely got a sci-fi twist on them. I think that the art team has done an amazing job with them. You'll know all of those weapons because you play with them in the other game modes in Arena, and that will start to make things sort of feel a lot more coherent. But you've got the Illuvials with you that you will deploy. They will be sort of auto in a sense that they walk around by themselves. You can issue them some commands that can help, but they're mainly auto. We're playing around with the idea that you get to control their Omega ability. And I think that that's the main one. That's that big powerful thing that if you time it right can give you that big payoff. So at the moment, I would say that it's probably similar to something like Genshin Impact, but not quite Dark Souls, and certainly not as like point and click as like if you like. I know MOBAs have a lot of interaction that you do, but like if you just attack someone, you're effectively just saying like attack them, and it just comes up. It's not that auto. We're trying to get away from the auto side because we've got that covered in the auto battler. But we feel like it's pretty fun, and it gives extra reasons for us to be able to do things like provide leveling systems for the ranger that can make you feel a little bit more like you own it. The cool thing that I've always planned with the ranger compared to the alluvials is, to me, the alluvials should always have just a singular level system. If you level them up to the highest level in one game, you should be able to reap the rewards of that in another game because they're on chain. It doesn't really make much sense to have them go back to the start, right? Their level is really about them just getting manifestly powerful. So it kind of makes sense that they sort of grow and you can fuse them and stuff like that. But with your ranger, we feel like those are very individual experiences that we want to build out. So even things like survival mode, we would like to build into that, leveling systems that can make that feel really fun. This new game mode for Overworld, we want that to be a lot more about leveling and possibly like skill trees, stuff like that that you can branch out into. And over time, each of the games that we do should have a leveling type of system that's separate to itself, because you're not an alluvial, you're a person that's, going up in the world. And so you need to gain these skills by doing,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really exciting. I hope we get some, and we need progression in everything, right? That's the name of the game in games, and it would be really cool to have a skill tree and all of that. So it sounds like we will be still bringing a lot of illuvials, right? Because what we have seen in the leagues, there is only one illuvial that you fight with, but you will still bring your team of illuvials, and then you rotate between them, or multiple illuvials fight at the same time. Sorry if that's a little bit too detailed, but I was just curious.
No, that's totally fine. What we're playing with is we would like it to feel like you have some options, but we don't want it to feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? So it's definitely not going to be just one that you have there. We've also, played with the idea of how many of these bastards can you get out there whacking stuff before it gets too chaotic. Yeah. So it may be that you can have two of them out at the same time, maybe three, but we think that there's not much point in limiting you in too much of a way to say like you can't bring out a lot. There probably will be some gates on how long they can be out for before they get someone back, how many that are out at a time. Remember, at the end of the day, I'm always one of the people that likes to bring it back to the lore, and your drone is actually the one that is providing your ability to manifest this alluvial onto either the battle board or into the overworld, right? Yeah. So your drone is spending a lot of effort to make that happen. That's costly. It makes him tired, right? The drone is an amazing part of your kit. It's your best buddy, right? The alluvials, you can form a bond with them and stuff like that, but nobody is like your drone.
I talk so much to my drone when it's like trying to capture something or something. Like, build it up, or maybe tough love. I don't know what's the best yet.
And it needs to be that way, right? Part of the upgrades in Gauntlet is to allow them to sort of take a much bigger stage, and that'll be part of some of the quality of life improvements that we're doing. But you have this drone that is manifesting 1, 2, 3 alluvials, whatever it happens to be, and that takes a toll on them, so they won't be able to do that constantly. That'll be part of the decision making. Do you bring them all out for this particular fight? If you do that, then for the next fight, maybe I don't have as many, and so there's going to be a little bits of strategy around there. Again, we're trying to make this new stuff as arcadey as possible, so that it's just wild amounts of fun and gets people addicted to it. But there's still little parts of strategy that really help a game go from just something that you play 1 or 2 times to something where you're constantly looking at how to master it. And I think we'll find a good space there.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. And usually, like in the beginning, when the combat was presented and should we really remove auto battler from the overworld, I was in the camp of keeping the auto battler because it has more skill expression maybe. But now I've realized we have a full strategy game mode. We have the arena, we have the auto battler things covered. And it doesn't make sense to bring this element again into the overworld, because I've also talked to people. It was hard for me to understand first, but a lot of people don't want this strategy type of game. They want something like more like action, live action stuff. So yeah, this is really cool to see that this is coming now to the overworld, and I think it will help a lot with the fun, especially if you even improve it. Talking about Ascendant Arena. So there has been talks right now that it will be removed for now, most likely just to streamline the experience to people that click on Arena. They have one game mode. We want to really focus on this, polish it up, and give a streamlined experience to the people. But supposedly it will come back in a reworked state. Can you share anything how you envision the future Ascendant to look like?
We're definitely going to rework it. It's the last on the rework list of the 3 game modes for Arena. We're going all in onto Gauntlet to try and get the features that will make it our own game, so that when people go in, they say, it's familiar, like Underlords, TFT, those sort of games, but it's different enough that it's a cool new experience, and we like it. The survival mode, we think that we can do some fun, simple things with. And we probably won't spend a lot of time on survival mode. Like I said, we're really going hard onto Gauntlet. But with survival mode, we feel like there's a fun experience that people can do that will teach them about Gauntlet without that fear that I have to go and play other people, right? There is a large number of people out there that if they don't have the ability to just play against a computer, they're out. Right, we want to capture that group, so that's where the experience comes with survival. That means that survival needs to be quite similar to the way that Gauntlet works, and it will. Right, it'll have a shop, it'll have all of the same things. The ranger will be there. All of those mechanics will be identical to the way that it works in Gauntlet. It'll just be some game mode specific things that sit around that are a bit different. Like I said, we're not going to spend a whole heap of time on that. And if we just go all in on Gauntlet, it might mean that we do nothing with survival for a little while, just because we want to deliver a really good experience to people as soon as possible. But then the next thing on the list for the Arena team would be fixing up survival so that it's better. Unfortunately, Ascendant needs to be reworked a little bit more. The question will come down to what exactly that looks like. We're going to take a lot of feedback from the community on the things that they liked and what they didn't like. I've always been of the opinion that there's a game that I liked to play, came out about maybe 5 years ago, called Mechabellum. And I felt like that might be a better experience, that style of game where you're not picking all of your alluvials at the beginning. You might have just a small pot that you pick in. But one of the biggest negatives with Ascendant is that you have to do this whole,
team
deck
building
collecting mechanic.
Yeah.
Now, some people absolutely love it, and that's fine. But it could even be that Ascendant gets, reworked as a full-on, deck building game that just has like a auto battler sort of shell on top of it, really leaning into the auto battler side so that it's a lot more strategic and similar to those style of games. Or it could be that we end up finding that something similar to a Mechabellum, which is closer to what Gauntlet is, might be a better way to go about doing it. But we don't have an actual answer for that. I do know that Mika, one of the guys that we have on the team that works on Arena, has a very specific idea for it that I would like to pursue. There's other people that definitely want to go more the card collecting style, but I think we need to focus at the moment, get as many people into Gauntlet as we can, because it's the closest one we have to the final state of what we want it to be. And we'll just build from there, right? But at the moment, it doesn't make that much sense to dilute the fan base. And if we can make Gauntlet be fun for everyone, I get it. There's going to be some people out there that, myself included, sad to see Ascendant, stopped for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I believe that it's for the good of Illuvium, and I think that we can then focus on it as its own singular thing to do when the time is right, and come up with something that is, a lot better than what we see at the moment. Who knows, right? I've even thought about making Ascendant be 4v4. Right. So it's still two teams, right? So, but it's 4 people playing against 4 people rather than 1 against 1. But like I said, none of these things are set in stone. I don't want anyone to think that we're doing anything specific.
Yeah.
For now, just simplify everything, make the other stuff as good as we can, and then revisit it when we have the time.
Yeah, and I was advocating for keeping Ascendant because it has a small player base, but a very loyal player base, and they could be hurt by taking it away. But as long as I think it is, they are reassured that it's coming back better, and it's just the way to do it now for the betterment of Illuvium, because like we said earlier, learning from past mistakes, so we don't want to, we split the attention to many games. We don't want to do it again inside one of the games into many game modes, right? It should be a little bit more focused on one thing. Makes it easier for development, for the players coming in. It's just overall a better thing.
Yeah. The main thing with it is that we want new players to be able to see a very streamlined experience, right? Yeah. Our onboarding is not good enough, right? One of the biggest things that we need to do beyond putting a big focus into Gauntlet is our onboarding needs to become a lot better, right? That's part of these IIPs that are coming out. It's part of a lot of the work that we're doing to streamline everything so that a new person coming into the ecosystem who looks at the Illuvials, plays a bit and says, I really love this, doesn't just get completely confused about what do I need to do next, right? That's an area where we're just not good enough. So it could be like, our issue is not that there's a loyal group of people playing Ascendant that want to keep playing it. Maybe we can find a way to have it be like an obscure way to get into the game so that the average person doesn't even know it's there, but the people that love to play it, they can go play against each other. Actually, and I don't know, we come up with a little console command that you can bring up to
the zombies from Call of Duty.
So there might be something that we can do there for those people that like it. I do know that there's a lot of people out there that really want that style of game, but we need to make it better so that even if it ends up being a niche audience, it's got to be big enough that it can sustain itself by people wanting to buy cosmetics or getting the Illuvials and stuff like that. So we're definitely not, jettisoning it completely. It's just about hold for now and build it back up to something even better later.
Yeah, I like that idea where there was, I think, in an old Call of Duty, how to unlock the zombie survival mode. You had to, in the game menu, there was a little arcade system and you had to play a mini game there. And over multiple steps you could unlock it. That might be too complicated, but something like this could be cool. And I hope it stays similar to...
No mini games. We're not going to do mini games. I guarantee that's going to trigger a lot of people's PTSD, myself included.
Yeah.
But this is something that I just thought of off the top of my head. So it could be that there's a very easy way for us to get it in there that allows it to stay around without. But at the very least, no one should be expecting major updates on Ascendant outside of possibly getting the alluvials with their abilities changed. So that might happen just as a natural consequence of Gauntlet, but it could mean that the balance for Ascendant just goes crazy. Yeah. But hey, if it's a secret game that only some people can see and they want to go play that, then by all means.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope it stays a 1v1 mode to some extent, or maybe, there's so many ways you can do it, right? I think it's cool that you can battle straight up other players, but I also like the idea of team game. There was, I'm just going down the nostalgia road, but in Warcraft 3 there was a fun map. It was called Team Tower Defense, where you build towers and you send each other monsters, but you could be two players building, like one is sending, one is building the army and stuff like this. Yeah, that was one of my favorite game modes. That was really cool.
Well, that's very similar to the sort of direction that we would like eventually to go with survival mode. Mm-hmm. Right? It's obviously not tower defense, but when you think about it, wave after wave of alluvials coming at you in survival translates very exactly to team tower defense.
Yeah, that's where it came from, right? With with Legion TD, I think, in Warcraft 3, where it was the first time you would build your towers, but then they would actually be units, and it would be something else.
Exactly right. So that's something that we've had eyed for 4 years now, right? It's just, like I said, we got to pick our battles. So survival is going to get only very, very light changes just to make it coherent, so that when we do updates to Gauntlet, it doesn't break and it's nice and easy, and it adds a good onboarding experience for people. Once that is taken care of, there will not be many updates to survival until we're ready to go back and revisit it. But at that point, we think that there definitely will be some ability to have some PvP survival mode.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That's the best. Survival is just a cool concept. See how long it can last. I think that's just a really, from zombie survivals or whatever it is, it's a really cool concept. We are already on the hour. I just have 1-2 fast questions if you have a little bit more time, and then we can call it a day.
Sure.
So coming a little bit back again to what we talked about earlier, you said it might have been better to just make, just sell card packs instead of the gamified experience that you get in the overworld. Do you think there is, it could be possible, or it would be a good idea to bring out something like this in the future, where you have automated drone runs, you just pay, maybe you have less chances of getting something good, so it's still going to be valuable if you have the time to go in overworld, but maybe, like me example, I would just love to swipe my credit card and open a bunch of loot boxes with illuvials in there, even if it's less chance, and spend fuel on that just rapidly.
I think that at the very least that it's a decent idea to have both, right? We don't want to totally subvert the overworld by making them be, like way cheaper than just getting alluvials and stuff like that. But I wasn't the one who sort of suggested this idea of adding these things in, but I was the person who suggested, before Overworld even existed, let's be conservative and just sell packs, and then we'll work on building one game. And so I have some sort of desire for this to be the case. Once we built Overworld, that's where I guess my stubbornness came in. I was like, nope, I was wrong. Shouldn't have built packs. We should definitely have done the Overworld. This is going to be the greatest thing. And I went all in onto it, right? And the Overworld was definitely not my idea. That was Kieran and Grant's. But I went hard in on it, and I was like, yep, we can make this be really, really cool. It's like card opening, but it's going to be way better. So it was if it is a mistake, it's definitely my one to take, but we could add it as a hybrid experience so that some people might want to just let their drone go and do the run and give them just not quite as much stuff, so that the people who do go out and do the runs by themselves get an advantage out of it. And then for the masses, maybe they just go and do, their little drone runs. So I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
But is it better to completely swap out the experience? The only way that I think that would be possible is if we had something else in the pipeline that is coming behind it. We would never take out the overworld runs until we have something that's way better, that is, again, like I say, probably an MMO-lite.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think then it would make a lot of sense to remove what the current overworld is in favor of doing something that's a lot more immersive, because by then you're not like hurting some people and helping others, you're just helping everyone.
Yeah, it's like an Overworld 2.0 kind of thing.
Yep.
The next level, the
Definitely.
next experience. So I have prepared some blitz questions, which you can do it more, but the idea is you can only answer in yes, no, maybe, soon, or no comment. And I would just spin
Try
them
my
at you.
best. That's hard for me, right? This is the hardest part.
That's why I prepared it. But I picked the right questions for this, I think. So is optimization still ongoing, was a question?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have plans for console support in the future? I know we're getting mobile in the foreseeable future, but is there also console planned?
Maybe.
I
mean, it's a yes, but it's a longer yes.
Yeah. Will the game be translated into other languages?
Yes.
Yes. This is maybe not the right place to ask this, but is switching chains a possibility if it becomes necessary?
If it becomes necessary, yes.
Yes. Is an Illuvial or Augment ban round in Ascendant or Gauntlet mode planned?
If we're talking just Gauntlet, no.
Yeah.
If we're talking Ascendant, it depends on how the game ends up being built. Maybe.
Yeah. What's your favorite food? That's not a yes or no, but
My favorite food?
yeah.
I'm going to say at the moment it's golden kiwis.
Oh, nice. Also a fruit enjoyer. I love fruits, nuts, veggies. It's just the best.
I mean, I definitely love fruits more than veggies. I try to eat my veggies when I need to, but yeah.
If anyone from the neighbors.
Yeah, if you haven't tried a golden kiwi, eat it skin and all. It's healthy. Yeah. It's one of the best things.
Definitely with skin. And sometimes it feels bad for me if I have to buy, because they all come from down under, so it's quite a long ride till it comes to me.
Really?
But yeah, I think 99%. And if not, it comes from another far place, so I try not to. Sometimes, I save on other sites. Like, I don't want to limit myself to all the features of the modern life. But yeah, it must be nice to just get it from the next island.
I went to the shops today and I bought 50 golden kiwis. So yeah, I'm stocked up for a week.
Yeah, I'm doing the same with mandarins. Like I love them. And
yeah, we're not in mandarin season, but I definitely love them.
Yeah, you're in the. I keep forgetting. For you, it's summer, right?
I think it was about 28 degrees today. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to snow right now. One last question that I have for you, Aaron. I sent you my Gauntlet guide, and you said there is one thing that didn't quite get right. Can you let us know what that was? I'm so curious.
It's not big enough to worry about. I will say that number one, it's our fault, and number two, it's just the name.
Oh, okay.
I won't say what it is, but I'll tell you offline.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But for the record, I thought that Gauntlet guide was exceptional, right? And I'm not just saying that because you're here. Not only was it really good for explaining the game, but I also think that it did a great job of onboarding new people. right? Like it gives people a sense of, in my opinion, of wanting to come in. So for that, I very much appreciated it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was hoping to. Sometimes I feel like I come from snowboard teaching, right? And sometimes I feel like I want to give all I have in my head, all my information I've collected over the years. I want to give it to you in one session. Yep. And I try to do that, and it's easier when you can edit instead of really explain it person to person. So yeah, I hope I was hitting that point. I was trying to make it as evergreen as possible. So hopefully in 1 year, it's still gonna be. Maybe the game looks different, but hopefully it's still gonna work. Like the core underlying auto battler principles should still apply. Yeah.
Yep.
Because so far in Illuvium, every time you do a video next month, it's outdated because there's another update coming in, which is a good thing, I know, but it makes my job a bit harder.
It's one of those things where, you know, we get people saying, release something, and then other people say, well, like every time I go and do a video, something's changed. It's like, well, okay.
But that's a good thing. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah. We have a lot of stuff coming. It's been, like, I'll admit that there was definitely some issues with the launch that meant that we slowed down stuff because we had to get stable with the launch. And since getting stable with the launch meant spending time doing stuff that was on our production environment, it's always a lot slower to do that than it is to do it while you're in testing. So it definitely didn't help us there. But as you said earlier, we now are sort of past a lot of that stuff, and we are really going to narrow our focus. Like I said, 2 main things that you can expect us to be focusing on up until Christmas is Gauntlet and our onboarding experience. You may get some other things. There's obviously a couple of things coming for Illuvium Zero and a couple of things coming for Overworld, but we're really trying to, you know, push through with the stuff that we think matters the most, so that once that gets done, we can then shift our attention as a team over to the other areas and then start, you know, really kicking some goals with them.
That is awesome to hear. I'm looking forward to it. Aaron, we are at the end of it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was a great talk with you. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully I wasn't too boring for people. Hopefully they got a little bit of new info.
No, it's my favorite time of the year. It's so interesting to have a little sneak peek into the mastermind behind Illuvium. Thank you again.
No, I'm one out of many people. If ever there was a time that I was a mind at all, that time has well come and passed. Now the team works very much together. We have like 17 separate proposals for some new things that we want to build that have come from all aspects of the team, not just game designers. We've had artists, we've had people from our security team and all sorts of places come together to give some ideas. It's very much a communal project, and that includes also the community.
Yeah, I like to quote Kieran here. You've built a team of freakishly talented people, and it's nice to see and it all coming together. And you're a part of that, not the overseeing overlord. I get that.
I'm a small part of it, yeah.